Norman Bowker frowned. Soaking wet, he said. Turns out the moron went for a swim. You believe that? All alone. He just takes off, hikes a couple clicks, finds himself a river and strips down and hops in and starts doing the goddamn breaststroke or some such fine shit. No security, no nothing. I mean, the dude goes skinny dipping. Azar giggled. A hot day. Not that hot, said Dave Jensen. Hot, though. Get the picture, Bowker said. This is my K we're talking about. Dinks everywhere, and the guy goes for a swim. Crazy, I said. I look across the hooch. 20 or 30 guys were there, some drinking, some passed out, but I couldn't find Morty Phillips among them. Bowker smiled. He reached out and put his hands on my knee and squeezed. That's the kicker, man. No more Morty. No? Morty's luck gets all used up, Bowker said. His hand still rested on my knee, very lightly. A few days later, maybe a week, he feels really dizzy. Pukes a lot. Temperature zooms way up. I mean, the guy's sick, Jorgensen says. He must have swallowed bad water on that swim. Swallowed a VC virus or something. Bobby Jorgensen, I said. Where is he? Be cool. Where's my good buddy Bobby? Norman Bowker made a short clicking sound with his tongue. You want to hear this? Yes or no? Sure I do. So listen up. Then Morty gets sick. Like you never seen nobody so bad off. This is a real kick-ass disease. He can't walk or talk, can't fart, can't nothing, like he's paralyzed. Polio, maybe. Henry Dobbins shook his head. Not polio. You got it wrong. Maybe polio. No way, said Dobbins. Not polio. Well, hey, Bowker said. I'm just saying what Jorgensen says. Maybe fucking polio. Or that weird elephant disease. Elephantiasis, or whatever. Yeah, but not polio. Across the hooch, sitting off by myself, Azar grinned and snapped his fingers. Either way, he said, it goes to show you. Don't throw away luck on little stuff. Save it up. There it is, said Mitchell Sanders. Morty was due, Dave Jensen said. Overdue, Sanders said. Norman Bowker nodded solemnly. You don't mess around like that. You just don't fritter away all your luck. Amen, said Sanders. Fucking polio, said Henry Dobbins. We sat quietly for a time. There was no need to talk, because we were thinking the same things about Morty Phillips and the way luck worked and didn't work and how it was impossible to calculate the odds. There were a million ways to die. Getting shot was one way, booby traps and landmines and gangrene and shock and polio from a VC virus. Where's Jorgensen? I said. Another thing. 3 times a day, no matter what, I had to stop whatever I was doing. I had to find a private place and drop my pants and smear out this antibacterial ointment. The stuff left stains on the seat of my trousers, big yellow splotches, and so naturally there were some jokes. There was one about rear guard duty. There was another about hemorrhoids, or how I had trouble putting the past behind me. The others weren't quite so funny. During the first full day of Alpha's sit-down, I didn't run into Bobby Jorgensen once. Not at Chow, not at the EM Club, not even during our long booze sessions in the Alpha Company hooch. At one point, I almost went looking for him, but my friend Mitchell Sanders told me to forget it. Let it ride, he said. The kid messed up bad for sure, but you have to take it into account how green he was. Brand new, remember? Thing is, he's doing a lot better now. I mean, listen, the guy knows his shit. Say what you want, but he kept Morty Phillips alive. And that makes it okay? Sanders shrugged. People change. Situation change. I hate to say this, man, but you're out of touch. Jorgensen, he's with us now. And I'm not? Sanders looked at me for a moment. No, he said. I guess you're not. Stiffly, like a stranger, Sanders moved across the hooch and lay down with a magazine and pretended to read. I felt something shift inside me. It was anger. Partly, but it was also a sense of pure and total loss. I did not fit in anymore. They were soldiers, I wasn't. In a few days they'd saddle up and head back into the bush, and I'd stand up on the helipad to watch them march away, and then after they were gone I'd spend the day loading resupply choppers until it was time to catch a movie or play cards or drink myself to sleep. A funny thing, but I felt betrayed. For a long while I just stared at Mitchell Sanders. Loyalty, I said. Such a pal. In the morning I ran into Bobby Jorgensen. I was loading Hueys up on the helipad, and when the last bird took off while I was putting on my shirt, I looked over and saw him leaning against my Jeep, waiting for me. It was a surprise. He seemed smaller than I remembered, a little squirrel of a guy, short and stumpy looking. He nodded nervously. Well, he said. At first I just looked down at his boots. Those boots, I remember them from when I got shot. Out along the Sung Trebang, a bullet inside me, all that pain. But for some reason what stuck to my memory was the smooth, unblemished leather of his fine new boots. Factory black. No scuffs or dust or red clay. The boots were one of those vivid details you can't forget. Like a pebble or a blade of grass, you just stare and think, Dear Christ, there's the last thing on earth I'll ever see. Jorgensen blinked and tried to smile. Oddly, I almost felt some pity for him. Look, he said, can we talk? I didn't move. I didn't say a word. Jorgensen's tongue flicked out, moving along the edge of his mustache, then slipped away. Listen, man, I fucked up, he said. What else can I say? I'm sorry. When you got hit, I kept telling myself to move, but I couldn't do it. Like I was full of drugs or something. You feel like that? Like you can't even move? No, I said. I never did. But can you at least? Excuses? Jorgensen's lip twitched. No, I botched it. Period. Got all frozen up, I guess. The noise and shooting and everything, my first firefight. I just couldn't handle it. When I heard about the shock, the gangrene, I felt miserable. Nightmares too. I kept seeing you lying out there, heard you screaming, but it was like my legs were filled up with sand. They didn't work. I keep trying, but I couldn't make my goddamn legs work. He made a small sound in his throat, something low and feathery, and for a second I was afraid he might bawl. That would have ended it. I would have patted his shoulder and told him to forget it, but he kept control. He swallowed whatever the sound was and forced a smile and tried to shake my hand. It gave me an excuse to glare at him. It's not that easy, I said. Tim, I can go back and do things over. My ass. Jorgensen kept pushing his hand out at me. He looked so earnest, so sad and hurt, that it almost made me feel guilty. Not quite, though. After a second I muttered something and got into my Jeep and put it on the floor and left him standing there. I hated him for making me stop hating him. Something had gone wrong. I'd come to this war a quiet, thoughtful sort of person, or a college grad, Phi Beta, Kappa, and Summa Cum Laude, all the credentials, but after 7 months in the bush I realized that those high, civilized trappings had somehow been crushed under the weight of the simple daily routines. I'd turn mean inside, even a little cruel at times. For all my education, all my fine liberal values, I now felt a deep coldness inside me, something dark and beyond reason. It's a hard thing to admit, even to myself, but I was capable of evil. I wanted to hurt Bobby Jorgensen the way he'd hurt me. For weeks it had been a vow. I'll get him. I'll get him. It was down inside me like a rock. Granted, it didn't hurt him any more, and I'd lost some of the outrage and passion, but the need for revenge kept eating at me. At night I'd sometimes drink too much. I remember getting shot and yelling out for the medic and then waiting and waiting and waiting, passing out once, then waking up and screaming some more, and how the screaming seemed to make the new pain, the awful stink of myself, the sweat and fear. Bobby Jorgensen's clumsy fingers, when he finally got around to working on me, I kept going over it all, every detail. I remember the soft fluid heat of my own blood. Shock, I thought, and I tried to tell him that, but my tongue wouldn't make the connection. I wanted to yell, You jerk, it's shock, I'm dying, but all I could do was whinny and squeal. And I remembered that in the hospital and the nurses. I even remembered the rage. But I couldn't feel it anymore. In the end, all I felt was that coolness down inside my chest. Number 1, the guy had almost killed me. Number 2, there had to be consequences.